New Shub reported on this tonight, and they talked about school lunches and also ECE. It seems with the deregulation of the ECE market, what David Seymour is saying is we want to put less qualified people in front of your kids. We want to have less qualified people looking after your children. The story in the whole 2 minute 17 also dovetails into the idea about the school lunch programs being cut as well. So let's have a look at these two things. And there's one more part that David Seymour got up to today as he was at one of these ECEs, which TV3 doesn't mention, but we'll go and check out anyway.
No, my Arnold, welcome back. Ministry of Education staff on the school lunches team are set to find out tomorrow whether they're in line to lose their job.
One staffer has told Newshub they have serious concerns about the future of the program if the team's reduced.
The job cuts come as the government today promised to cut red tape to make it easier to open new early childhood education centres.
You know, like when they cut red tape in the 90s and they built all those houses, it ended up being so good. What's that syndrome called? The leaky house or something? They cut all those regulations, and all of a sudden 20 years later there was a really bad outcome. It's probably got nothing to do with this year, but it's just something that I'm reminded of right in this moment for some strange thing. I don't know.
Reporter Jamie Ensor has more.
Little one settling in for story time with a special guest.
Doesn't sound very comfortable, says the frog.
And Seymour's not comfortable with two.
Do you notice, and I bet you anything you want, that the ECE people did this on purpose? Right there behind, and you do get a close-up later, but right there behind that photographer is the kid's story book with Jacinda Ardern on the front page.
Not comfortable with too much red tape in the early childhood education sector, where parents are facing long waits to find a place for their kids. So the government wants to make it easier to set up centres. New providers will no longer need government approval, and it will also be easier and cheaper to staff them.
No government approval needed to set up an ECE. No one sees a problem with this? No one. So this is literally the ambulance at the bottom of the cliff. They're not going, how do we go through the process and put out a world-class, top-notch early childhood education in New Zealand and do it safely, do it well with qualified people. They're just going, how many more buildings can we get and how many people who monitor these kids can we slap into it? That's as far as they've got. They think that's the answer, Chewy.
It's bizarre. Again, it's one of those things where people go, oh, okay, so what's this? Yeah, putting less qualified people in charge of children with like even less oversight. That is going to save the day. What the hell? Of all the regulations to cut, keeping children safe and educated, that's on the chopping block.
Yeah. Along
with keeping them fed, I guess. So, yeah, cool.
Let's just have a listen to the bit again about no government oversight. It's just, it scares me.
Will no longer need government approval, and it will also be easier and cheaper to staff them.
We're taking away regulations that add costs without making sense. We're going to leave regulations that make sense.
We're relieved in the sector, really, really relieved. We're faced with layer after layer of regulation.
But while the government's cutting red tape,
rightly
it's still
so
cutting jobs. Newshub has seen an email sent to a member of the school lunches team at the Ministry of Education saying it's proposed their role could be affected by a restructure. The ministry told us that full details will be released to staff tomorrow and wouldn't speculate on the number of positions that could be cut. But one team member told Newshub they would have serious concerns about the future of the program if staff numbers are reduced, saying small groups providing lunches to schools need a lot of support. They need help.
You can't provide that front line without having the good support that sits in alongside you and behind you. And in this particular case, the fact that we have a really strong team in the Ministry of Education means that our teachers aren't burdened down.
Seymour, who's mulling changes to school lunches, says it's an operational decision.
It's a question of, well, not how many people are required, but what are you delivering and how are you going to do it better and smarter? And yes, I'm quite confident that we'll be able to do it without those particular people.
Why are you confident? What evidence do you have that makes you confident? This is the end where you can see right in the middle, I think there was a kid's book for those who are listening to the audio podcast called Taking the Lead, which is Jacinda Ardern's story. What a metre from him as he was reading the book.
And how the school lunches program could look and run without those people should be known by the end of May. Jamie Ensor, Newshub.
So he was reading a story called Oi Frog. Okay. Now what TV3 didn't cover it all, but TVNZ did in a short clip, is how he then went outside and he compared Jacinda Ardern to an authoritarian and said that the book he was reading was a warning against authoritarian, and that's possibly why Jacinda Ardern's got a book in there as well. So let's just have a listen to this. This is outside at the same time. I'm going to just refresh the page. Though. Stay with me. Stay with me. Here we go. Let's go one more time. Come on, TVNZ.
Oh, absolutely. But I have to say, Oi Frog was a lot more entertaining.
I think he thinks he's being funny. Like the smirk, I think he thinks he's making a joke that everyone's in on, but he just comes off like a complete tool.
Was a lot more entertaining, and ironically, Oi Frog seemed to be a warning to children about authoritarian people that tell you what to do all the time. Now, maybe that's why they also have the Jacinda book for a similar purpose. Who knows? Was that so? Oh, I think a wide range of people would have that view. Beg your pardon? Oh, I think the way that she used power through the COVID era was excessive.
You've
it didn't properly
voted
balance
for it.
New Zealanders' rights and their welfare. And in some cases, it actually was found to be illegal. So some of those actions most certainly were.
Yeah. And you said the best thing there, Chewy. Like, how many times did he vote against the so-called authoritarian?
He supported it.
Yeah.
He was.
I think the word we're looking for. I think the word we're looking for that fits quite appropriately with his nickname is what a smeghead. Is that what we're looking for? What a smeghead?
He made the right decision at the right time, like they all did. They all did in the early days of COVID, and then when they had time to work out what was going to be the most politically expedient thing for them, they all picked their heels. And Seymour is just, oh God, like bullying children is wrong. But some adults you look at and you go, you should have been bullied a bit more. Just a bit more. And Seymour's right at the top of my list there. How he thinks reducing regulation in early childhood, and who was that person from the sector going, oh, we've been dying for this, less regulation, less people looking at how we're looking after these kids.
Yeah.
You know, who the hell was that?
I also want to add one thing.
I am dying to. So a very good friend of mine works in early childhood, and he's got a lot of criticism of various governments throughout the years over early childhood stuff. And I am going to message him after this and go, have you seen this? What is your view? And I will get basically probably not even English out of him. I'm imagining just clearly someone punching a keyboard until it stops working is going to be his reaction. Like the guys in early childhood, they're always the poor cousin in the education thing. They're always scrambling around for funding. They're always trying to do more with less. They're not seen as being treated with equality to primary or secondary school teachers and that sort of thing. And it's all so important. We've covered this off before, that our society has changed so much and early childhood hasn't changed with it. Like early childhood should be part of the education system because both parents are probably working. So it's not daycare anymore. It is part of the education process.
I want to add one other thing to the conversation, because the thing is, for the pushback now, for people saying things like authoritarian and overreach and that kind of stuff, I'm actually perfectly fine with the understanding that New Zealand went stronger and harder than many countries. But if you're going to have that conversation as a criticism, you have to incorporate one very important piece of information. That harder, longer, waiting for the vaccines to come here interaction saved 20,000 lives. So you can say that businesses should have been opened up sooner. That's a perfectly valid position to take. But you can't then say, and it wouldn't have cost more lives. So, perhaps we in a situation where has never happened before in our generation since probably 1917, so no one still actively working in government would have experienced anything. We had to fly by the seat of our pants a little bit, and they made decisions. Perhaps they went 10% too hard. Perhaps if they had gone 10% the other way, there would have been 15,000 lives saved and 5,000 more deaths, but businesses would have been better. They're all valid conversations to have, but you have to understand when you say, like he's saying now, authoritarian overreach should have opened up, what you're also saying is those lives that were saved, I'm fine with them not being saved. If you take that position, I have no argument with you because you're being an honest actor, right? If you take the position we should never have shut down, you need to accept the position you're taking, according to research, would have meant 20,000 more dead New Zealanders. If you have that position and you take that responsibility, I have no argument with you. I, on the other hand, am okay with a little bit more debt and a little bit harder for business because I rate people's lives more highly than people's businesses. Maybe that sounds horrible, and I get it. It's a payoff, and I know I'm not saying I'm happy businesses failed. I'm not saying I'm happy the amount of money we spent. But if you said to me 5,000 lives or that dairy surviving, I'd probably pick the 5,000 lives. It's my position. You might pick the dairy. That's your position, but let's at least be honest about this. Open up sooner, not do what they done, more dead Kiwis. Accept that, I'll accept your position. Not that you're right, but I accept you're at least being honest, Chewy.
I look at that, those kids that he's reading stories to, how many of their parents and grandparents are still around because of our COVID response.
Yeah.
And then he goes and makes a comment like that. I hate this metric. Like, I remember really early on in the COVID thing, where they went, remember, one of the criticisms will be that we didn't need to do all of this because it wasn't that bad. And it wasn't that bad because we did all of these things. You can't jam a pandemic genie back in the bottle once you let it loose. Businesses fail all the time. And yes, it is traumatic for the people that spin them up, and it's traumatic for the people that work for them. And it's horrible. It is horrible, horrible, horrible. But if the people running the business are still there to try again, it's better than someone just not being there anymore. Like, people will forget this. And this is what they mean by you've got to remember your history. Because if you forget the details of what people went through and the benefits of it, then you're just like, well, yeah, you let that false narrative settle in. The government's actions in COVID kept me in a job. They kept me paying my mortgage. They kept me in a home. Now, my parents are still alive. These are all factual, real world things to me. And they are echoed right throughout this country. And I'm not saying that lockdown was easy for people. Everybody's experience of COVID was different, but it bought us time, and it gave businesses surety, and it gave workers surety, and that was the right decision. And every time an opposition person went up and said, "Oh, well, we shouldn't do this, or we should open up a bit more early," the math on that was like, and if we get it wrong, what is it? And maybe the hangover of having higher inflation and having some supply chain difficulties is worth the effort of keeping citizens alive. That is the baseline that I expect from a government in a time of crisis. How many citizens can you keep alive?
Yeah.
Everything else is secondary.